I Just Get Hired podcast fans. This is Rebecca Lee Doran, people specialist, mental health reformist, and professional manifester. Get ready to check out my upcoming episode where I'll be sharing tips and discussing how manifestation can help you level up in your career. Be sure to listen to this episode on the Just Get Hired podcast for more.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Just Get Hired podcast. Have you ever thought of using the power of manifestation to set specific career goals? Well, welcome to episode 50, where we're going to help you learn to take control of your career and manifest your dream job. Well, if you're new to this show, or maybe you've been around for a while, hey everyone, my name is Jessica Fiesta George, and I'm your host of Just Get Hired. This is a podcast where I help bring insightful conversations and expert advice to help you thrive in your career. I'm a talent acquisition and recruiting executive who assists career professionals like you at different levels of your career learn to navigate this crazy thing that we call work. I also support mid-size and private equity-backed companies in transforming how they attract, hire, and retain top talent. Well, episode 50, I've got Rebecca Lee Doran. She's a career manifestation expert, and she has helped countless individuals manifest their dream careers, and she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion today. Rebecca Lee Doran is a people program specialist, and her professional journey spans 2 decades across the hospitality and culinary industries. She's been in the luxury fashion world, and she has also recently been in the healthcare tech space. Her experience has served a long-term study in understanding the employee psyche across roles and industries and the significant impact company culture has on both workers and job seekers. Rebecca also serves on the board of directors for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. She's also a harpist, she's a gamer, and of course she loves to spend quality time with her husband, cat, and her dog. While career manifestation may sound like a mystical concept to a lot of you, but for some people, this is a habitual practice that can intentionally create and attract the ideal career or job that you want through focused thoughts, beliefs, and actions. So let's bring in Rebecca so she can tell us more. All right, well, welcome to the Just Get Hired podcast, Rebecca. Great to have you on as a guest today. Are you ready to spend some time with us talking about how our audience can manifest their dream career?
Yes, I am so ready and so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I set things up previously and gave our audience a preview of your bio, so I'm ready to jump into the conversation. So let's get started.
Okay.
Well, since we're talking about dream careers, my first question is, when you were younger, what kind of dream career did you have?
I actually wanted to be an actress, which is so weird to me to think about in retrospect, but I guess at the time it made sense to me because I used to memorize movies. I loved watching movies. I'd be able to recite the entire screenplay for Titanic and Mary Poppins. So I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be an actress. This makes sense. But when I got into high school and my friends, started looking at colleges and deciding what they wanted to study, that was when it actually occurred to me, oh, I need to think of a real career because I wouldn't even know how to become an actress. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I talk to become an actress? And to be honest with you, I never really felt like I had a ton of guidance on how to go about discovering different career options. My dad, he was a teacher. He was specifically a behavioral specialist for the school district I attended. And he was always like, don't become a teacher. And we saw how much he was struggling and hustling, because my parents were divorced and my mom was a restaurant owner, and she never told me whether or not she loved or hated it, but I could see how much it negatively impacted not just her health, but also the entire dynamic of our family. So I knew I didn't want to be a teacher, and I saw owning a restaurant as kind of a backup plan just because I started working in my mom's restaurant when I was like 14. So I had a lot of experience and knowledge, but it wasn't my dream to do it. And I continued working in hospitality for many years. And it was from working in the hospitality industry that I learned about human resources and employee relations and So it was maybe when I was like 20 years old that I actively started working towards breaking into HR, and I enrolled in courses, asked to pick up more responsibilities at work. And it would take me about a decade before I was actually given the opportunity to enter the field.
Well, that's awesome because actually I wanted to become an actress as well. And in
Oh,
fact, I actually do some acting on the side, and I've been doing that since I was 16 years old. So
oh
that's
my
kind of my side
gosh.
hustle. So I've been very fortunate. I took acting classes, and um, I actually have an agent. I have two
That's
agents
so
actually.
cool.
So my 9 to 5 is definitely keeping me from doing that full time. And
Right.
maybe when I decide to retire, that would be my retirement dream job. But in the process right now, just I have been picking up small gigs here and there. I still do commercials. I do a lot of commercial print, but the
So you're
whole
not you're
acting
not
thing.
interested in like theater acting. You like film acting.
Yeah, I like film acting
That's
and TV.
awesome.
I've been able to do some, background work. That doesn't take up a lot of time, but the older I get, the harder it is to start memorizing those lines. So,
So actually, I'll tell you about, so I only attended an audition once when I was like, let me just give it a try. It was to be an extra on Law and Order, which is like one of my favorite shows. And it was like, yeah, just to be a background person, like didn't even have any lines or anything. And I was
yeah.
like, yeah, this is awesome. So I went and they gave me like a 2-page script to read and act out in front of the people. And I was like, wait, this is like
Wow.
I was like, this is like a non-speaking line, right? And they're like, yeah, but you still have to audition and we need to know that you
Hmm.
can act. And I was like, oh, okay, bye. So I just left. Yeah, I couldn't get over my shyness over
Aw.
it.
Well, you never know. I mean, it's still there, be a good side hustle, and it does pay well. Short gigs that you can maybe get into. So, not
It,
all of
it
them.
it
You have to
pays
ask,
well.
but
Yeah, it pays well if you can land a gig.
true. Well, let's see where that might take you one day. You never
Yeah.
know. Well, cool. Well, since we're talking about manifesting your dream career, tell us, how do you approach manifesting your own career goals?
So, the answer to your question, I'm going to kind of break it down into a few different parts because first, I want to explain what exactly manifestation is. Secondly, I'm going to explain how I've successfully manifested my career goals into reality. And then thirdly, I'm going to sort of peel back this sort of mystical layer of manifestation and explain it in a way that's more analytical for someone who simply just wants to maybe project manage their life to achieve their career goals. So, manifestation has become a sort of buzzword in recent years, but there's a lot of misconception as to what manifestation is because the word is frequently misused or it's used out of context. So, when people hear the word manifest, they think you just wish really hard about something and then it'll appear in front of you, but that's not what manifestation is. The most basic definition of the word manifest means to demonstrate. To
Mhm.
demonstrate. So, through demonstration, you're able to bring a desire into fruition. And the first time I learned about what manifestation actually was, it was only a few years ago. My friend Regina introduced me to Christopher Witecki, who's an astrologer. So, Christopher Witecki discovered something he calls the 11 steps to serious joy. And that's Sirius spelled like Sirius Black for Harry Potter fans. So, Sirius.
Okay.
And in these 11 steps, he goes into elaborate detail on how to go about manifesting something you desire. And once I started applying these 11 steps into my life, I recognized that my life started going in a completely different direction from where it had been because previously I'd been struggling in every aspect of the term. My mental health was struggling. I was struggling to pay my bills. I was struggling to find employers who made me feel valued. And that new direction I took led me to clearly identifying what my goals were, strategizing how to realistically achieve those goals, and ultimately executing that plan, which led me to acquiring the success that I'd been dreaming of for over a decade. But
Mhm.
The problem with sharing this type of approach with people, especially in the professional realm, is that not everyone is receptive to approaches that come off as metaphysical. So, if I'm stepping away from this astrological metaphysical approach and just taking another stab at answering your question, which was, how do you approach manifesting your own career goals? That is by leveraging waterfall methodologies to project manage my career. So, waterfall as opposed to agile. So, people who are familiar with project management strategies understand this, but for those who don't, just to provide a very basic explanation and explain to you like you're a 5-year-old, waterfall project management means you have to complete one step at a time before you can move on to the next step, as opposed to agile project management, which means you're working on multiple steps at one time, and these steps can change at any time. So it requires a lot of flexibility and adaptability, as well as trial and error. So, when it comes to manifestation, the reason agile methodologies do not work in this context is because it doesn't hold the manifester accountable to sticking with a strategic plan to achieve their goals. As opposed to waterfall methodologies, waterfall methodologies do hold the manifester accountable, because if you attempt to shortcut your way through a step, it's never going to get completed, and that'll prevent you from ever being able to progress to the next step or the next step of your career or whatever you're working on.
Okay. So in elementary terms, for me, what I understand then, so like the agile approach might be better after your role, maybe, because, or maybe achieve your dream job. And that provides a little bit more flexibility. And then waterfall, you kind of have to see
I
the
think
end
that's
in mind.
I think that's actually great how you said that. So yeah, waterfall methodologies, again, if you're into project management, that's a great way to manifest your career goal. But then once you
Mhm.
actually acquire your career goal, companies and employers, they expect the world of you. So the most successful and most hireable project managers are agile project managers, because companies want someone who's able to manage multiple projects at a given time, because the theory is that it saves money for the company, because rather than taking time to do one thing at a time, you're doing a bunch of stuff at once, even if it means you might mess up and have to start over.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
Well, how do you stay focused on your career vision and maintain that motivation to face the challenges or setbacks?
So, staying focused requires a lot of discipline, and some people are naturally good at self discipline, but that's something that obviously took me a long time to achieve. Otherwise, I would have been able to manifest things much sooner in my life. And discipline goes hand in hand with patience. You have to be very patient in understanding that not every opportunity is meant for you. Some opportunities were manifested by someone else, and you're just witnessing it, but you have to understand when that manifestation is yours and when it's someone else's. And being patient helps you to properly take advantage of the time you have to strategize what your plan is, what you want your next move to be. But in order to properly strategize, you need to be able to recognize areas of opportunity, because you might find yourself faced with an unfortunate circumstance in the workplace that at face value might look like it's a career setback, when the reality is that it's an opportunity for you to prove yourself, to potentially advance in your career. So, yeah, in a nutshell, it boils down to disciplining myself, practicing patience, strategizing, and the ability to recognize opportunities. And in my opinion, those are things that all require a great deal of just time and life experience and kind of fine tuning throughout your entire life.
This episode is brought to you by Easy Source. Are you tired of spending countless hours searching for the perfect candidate for your job opening? Look no further, because Easy Source is the ultimate talent sourcing product that revolutionizes your recruitment process. The future of talent sourcing is just a click away. With Easy Source, finding candidates has never been easier. By using an easy-to-install Chrome extension combined with an intuitive dashboard, Easy Source allows you to effortlessly source relevant candidates just by logging into your LinkedIn profile. With Easy Source, you'll be in control of your recruitment success. So, recruiters, say goodbye to tedious candidate searches and say hello to streamlined talent sourcing with EasySource. Visit the website or look in the show notes for your referral link and sign up today.
I want to go back to something in your bio. So you were involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. What inspired you to become involved with that organization?
Yeah, so this is a very extremely personal cause to me, but my path to working with AFSP wasn't very clear cut and direct. But I've struggled with depression my entire life, and I'm additionally diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and stress induced narcolepsy. And stress-induced narcolepsy, that's actually a huge reason why I advocate for remote work because,
Okay.
my couch is right there. If I suddenly pass out, I know I'm in a safe place. That's fine.
Right.
So basically, I'm a hot mess. And during a very dark chapter of my life, I survived a personal attempt, thanks to medical and psychiatric intervention. And from there, I began my journey with psychotherapy, which helped me to address the things I'd been dealing with that I'd never really made an effort to identify before. So that was the beginning of my mental health care journey, but there was still a long way for me to go. And what ultimately triggered my need to be involved with AFSP was one of my husband's best friends took his life during the height of
Mm.
the pandemic in 2020.
Oh,
And we had actually asked him, my husband and I, we were engaged at the time. We had asked him to officiate our wedding and he declined. And it was very shocking. We
mm,
thought it was a no brainer. Like, of course he's going to say yes. So when he declined, he just said, he didn't feel worthy, and we were very confused by the encounter, and it became very awkward, so we just
mm.
decided not to bring it up again. But as it turned out, he ended up taking his life almost exactly a month to the day before our wedding. So it was a
Wow.
very yeah, it was a very traumatizing loss to live through, and that loss really reawakened a lot of my own struggles that I hadn't realized that hadn't been sorry. And that loss reawakened a lot of
Mhm.
my own struggles that I hadn't realized had been unresolved. So that was when I started to really take ownership of my mental health care.
Mm.
Because prior to that, I kind of saw it as like this annoying chore that I just wanted to avoid. But after our
Mhm.
friend passed away, I really prioritized consistent psychotherapy, which I've been doing every Thursday at one
Okay.
o'clock for the last like 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And for
Mhm.
me, part of that therapeutic process was giving back, wanting
Mm.
to use my personal experience and that perspective to contribute to this cause of, sorry, I have to take a breath.
That's okay.
So wanting to use my personal experience and that perspective to contribute to this cause of normalizing conversations surrounding mental health and self-harm and educating our communities on how to recognize signs of suicidal behavior and how to approach someone who needs help.
Wow, what a story. I'm sorry for your loss, and I can kind of see now why, manifestation and its focus is a theme of yours. And, hopefully we can help others that are even listening too, just to
Yeah.
bring awareness to that. So, thank you for your involvement with the foundation. People like you are definitely needed in this world.
Thank you.
Share maybe an example of how you manifest, or how manifesting has positively impacted your own professional journey.
Yeah, so before I started manifesting, my biggest professional priority was to appear successful. It wasn't even to be successful because I think I was at a point where I was so convinced I would never actually be successful. So I I don't know whatever level of success I was actually at, I just wanted to look more successful than I really was. So I long story short, I accidentally broke into the luxury fashion industry. So I worked at Christian Louboutin, and eventually Stella McCartney. And then the last fashion company I worked for was Kering, which is the parent
Mm.
company of Gucci. And I worked these roles. And for these well known companies, because anytime someone asked me, what do you do? I didn't even tell them what job I was doing. All I had to do was say, I work at
Mm.
Christian Louboutin or I work at Gucci, and people would get so excited and they would just say how jealous they were. And I loved that feeling because I convinced myself that the feelings of envy that other people were, communicating to me,
Mhm.
I felt like it was compensating for my lack of what I actually wanted, which was a
Mhm.
career I loved and a salary that allowed me to live comfortably. And what my hope was when I had taken those jobs, I was really hoping I would start the job and then find a way to eventually transition into the human resources department with, whatever company I was at. But the problem I kept facing was that these were such toxic work environments that I didn't even stay long enough at these companies to qualify for internal mobility.
Mm.
So now answering the question of, how manifestation has positively impacted my professional journey, I
Mhm.
really wholeheartedly adopted the 11 steps to serious joy and applied those steps into my life. And the first step that Christopher Witecki establishes to manifestation has to do with time and space. And what
Mhm.
that means is before you can manifest something, you have to ask yourself, have I nurtured an environment that has allowed both the time and space to attract what I desire? Have I created a stable environment for this dream to gravitate towards? And because I'd never done that before, I obviously wasn't manifesting my dream career of entering human resources and employee relations. So that first step was recognizing that I had not been building a safe environment for my dream to gravitate towards. So the corresponding question to that is, okay, Rebecca, so how did you create a safe environment for your dream
Mhm.
to gravitate towards? So going back to that project management mindset, you
Mhm.
cannot execute a project without first getting stakeholder buy-in. And
Mhm.
in this context, let's just say the executive stakeholder is the universe. So to get stakeholder buy-in, you have
Right.
to create a realistic plan that you know is literally and physically possible given the resources that you're working with. And my
Mhm.
resources at the time was I was still completing my bachelor's degree, like
Mhm.
in my early 30s, and was constantly bouncing from job to job. So I wasn't going to get much stakeholder buy-in from the universe, if you will.
Right.
So before I could get the stakeholder buy-in, I had to invest the time in completing my bachelor's degree as well as the time in remaining with a single employer long enough to get a positive work reference. And once I had strong foundations from both of those, that ultimately is what created the space for my dream to come in for a landing. And in my situation, I recognized that I really was manifesting my dream, but it didn't look exactly the way I expected. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the importance of being able to recognize opportunities because opportunities don't always look like opportunities. So my dream was manifesting slowly, and there were going to be layers that I had to sort of work through to ultimately get to where I am at now. And that first opportunity was by becoming a recruiter at a staffing agency. Now, at the time, that was not at all on my radar. I was like, staffing agency, like that had just never occurred to me. But once the opportunity presented itself, I recognized that agency recruiting was going to be my best bet in getting my foot in the door with human resources because the particular role that I got, it didn't require too much previous experience. And by that point, I'd become a lot more socially confident to take on a role that really does require a lot of extroversion. And from working at a staffing agency, I made so many professional connections that I'm still in touch with. And it was because I established a reputation as a trustworthy recruiter. I never complained about how frustrating recruiting was. I wasn't counting down the days for me to quit this job and look for another one. I
Mhm.
genuinely recognized that this role was just one of the steps towards manifesting my dream career. And it was through my success in this role that when I felt like I was eventually ready for the challenge of trying to break into a corporate role, I never broke from the 11 steps to serious joy or, for the project managers, I never broke away from the waterfall methodology. So I
Mhm.
applied for a role with the company on a Tuesday, and 9 days later I received a job offer.
It's
And
awesome.
yeah, I don't believe that's a matter of luck. Like when I've
Mhm.
told people that like 9 days, like how is that even possible?
Right.
I don't believe it's a matter of luck. Of course, timing, like timing is everything, but I believe it was because I was very careful in following the steps to manifestation that required me to hold myself accountable, to be very strategic in my plan, and then commit to whatever the execution was. So even though the application process to the job stage, that was only 9 days, that doesn't mean it took me 9 days to manifest my new role. It took
Mhm.
me much longer than that. It's just this is what that next phase of manifestation looked like. This specific phase took 9 days. And since then, my role has evolved from, being a talent acquisition partner to now being a people experience specialist, which is what I've always wanted to do. It's just, when I was younger, I don't think there was actually a name for that specialty. Like I always knew I wanted to play a role in promoting employee wellness, nurturing internal communities, but companies weren't quite woke enough yet to
Right.
consider the people experience. It was just all human resources, but now human resources is such a huge umbrella that has so many functions within it. And my specialty right now is committed to demonstrating value to the people who work for us.
It's awesome. Well, now I know you and I have connected on LinkedIn, and I think I've seen this on your LinkedIn page, but how do you incorporate mindfulness or visualization techniques into your career manifestation practice?
So I have to write everything down. I can't just make mental notes of stuff because there's no physical reminder to hold myself accountable to it, and I'm just not going to remember it. So I
Mhm.
use this 3-column chart, and it's actually available on my LinkedIn. So if you guys want to check out my LinkedIn, and you scroll down to the featured section, there's something that says like access my manifestation workbook, but
Okay.
it's basically a 3-column workbook, and I use this workbook as a way to kind of cut to the chase in the manifestation process because it really forces me to narrow my focus, address what my top priorities are, and it also requires me to self reflect on what my weaknesses are. So if you're looking at the first column, I'll
Mhm.
write down 5 qualities that this thing has to have. It can be anything, like a new boyfriend. I actually did manifest my husband using this
That's
exact
awesome.
method. For anyone who's looking, this works. So yeah, whether you're manifesting a husband or a house or a new job,
Or new.
um, yeah, so 5 yeah, so 5 non-negotiable qualities that this thing has to have, and if any one of these qualities is missing, you have to reject it. Like, don't even humor it, you just have to remove it from your life, and I do the same thing in the second column, but instead, I'm making a list of 5 non-negotiable qualities that this thing cannot have. This
Mm.
means these are your deal breakers, your boundaries. So this means that if any of these qualities are present in this thing, I have to reject it. And the third column is what are 5 non negotiable qualities that I have to embody in order to make this a reality. And this is where I have to self reflect and look at myself from an objective lens. Because if you're not able to evaluate yourself objectively, you're
Mhm.
not capable of being a credible source. And you need to be a credible source for your own manifestation.
How do you recommend or coach others who need to overcome that self-doubt whenever it comes to the whole career manifestation process?
So, self doubt is a very normal thing that everyone experiences, whether or not they're aware that they're experiencing it. And
Mhm.
people have different ways of handling or overcoming self doubt. And I've noticed, on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. A
Mhm.
really popular topic is imposter syndrome. How do you
Right.
overcome imposter syndrome? Or do you experience imposter syndrome? While I understand the sentiment behind this dialogue and, these feelings, it doesn't reflect my personal experience with self-doubt. My experience with self-doubt was projected through, a kind of alter ego. And some people, they might say, well, isn't an alter ego, like, isn't that the same thing as imposter syndrome? But I don't see it that way. I really
Mhm.
don't like the term imposter syndrome, because the way that sounds to me, it's like it's saying you don't belong here. And I don't think that that's right. You shouldn't put
Mhm.
your mind in that place. I prefer saying alter ego because at my core, and
Mhm.
you could already guess this based on, what I shared with you about my mental health journey. At my core, I'm a very sensitive and gentle person, but I recognize that that sensitivity and gentleness was often abused by people I came into
Mhm.
contact with, and without even consciously doing it, I one day realized that I was projecting this alter ego, most specifically in the workplace, but also sometimes in social
Hmm.
situations. I recognized that my sensitive core had not developed the capabilities of being able to stand up for myself or take action on things that I believed were important. But one day, this alter ego was born.
Mhm.
This is like my vigilante. This is my Batman, my Spider Man. My
Okay.
alter ego just didn't give a hoot and wasn't afraid to ask questions, wasn't afraid
Mhm.
to confront unfair practices, and wasn't afraid to fight for myself, whether that was standing up to people in social situations or
Mhm.
advocating for myself in the workplace. So I invite people, who say that they experience imposter syndrome. I invite you to change your perspective on imposter syndrome and become acquainted with your own alter ego.
I like that alter ego concept,
Yeah.
because I feel like sometimes I've shown up with somewhat of imposter syndrome, but I always kind of manifest and look at some of the talented leaders that I've worked for and how confident they come into a room. And every time I feel that way, I kind of say, what would they do when they come in the room?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And
that's kind of how I look at it.
yeah, and, Beyoncé used to have an alter ego. This was years ago. She was going by Sasha Fierce, and
Oh, that's right. I
yeah,
forgot about
and
that.
she said she developed that persona because she struggled with shyness her whole life, so the only way she was able to perform was to convince herself, "I'm Sasha Fierce, and I don't give a hoot about whatever, I'm confident." But, in recent years, she said that she's killed off that alter ego because she's changed, and she believed that she didn't really need that alter ego
Mhm.
anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, we covered a great deal of information. So what's next for you?
So I feel like I always have a lot going on. So of course I continue my work with AFSP, but in addition to that, I'm a bit of an office supplies junkie. Like I love office supplies, organizational tools, notebooks, stickers, and things just that help me stay organized. So I'm in the process of very gradually creating my own line of some materials that are meant to help people be more organized in their lives. So that's just something I'm having a lot of fun with, but I
Mhm.
want to make sure it's rolled out right. So I'm not going to rush the process.
Okay, well, if you need someone to test your products, I am a junkie as well and would love to
Oh,
do it too. As
awesome.
soon as the first of the year comes out and all of the school supplies and all of the planners come out, I'm always the first one. But I will say that I'm really bad at like staying with it. I have a bunch of cute planners, but after like the third or fourth month, I go to another notebook. So I've kind of have like notebook ADD.
Well, that's the first lesson of manifestation. You
There
gotta
we go.
discipline yourself, and you gotta commit to it.
Okay, well, see, I had the perfect expert on the show. Well, Rebecca, I think we covered a lot, so I appreciate all of your insight and thanks for being a part of the Just Get Hired podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being a part of the Just Get Hired podcast. Career manifestation is the practice of intentionally creating and attracting the ideal career or job into your life by focusing your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. It involves aligning your mindset, creating positive energy and actions towards your career goals, and leveraging the power of the law of attraction to bring desired opportunities and experiences into your professional life. Manifestation is not just wishful thinking, it's not daydreaming. It requires clarity of vision, setting specific career goals, and just taking inspired action steps towards achieving them. By practicing manifestation techniques like visualization, affirmation, gratitude, and mindfulness, you can shift your mindset and you can overcome limiting your beliefs and create a positive and empowering environment for your career success. Career manifestation is about tapping into your inner potential and accessing your unique strengths and passions and consciously co-creating your professional journey with the universe, allowing for a greater fulfillment, professional growth, and alignment to your true purpose. Well, if you guys like my content, make sure you head over to my website, Just Get Hired. Also connect with me on my Instagram page, Just Get Hired, and find me on LinkedIn and network with me by searching my full name, Jessica Fiesta George. Well, if you're ready to embark on a flavor-packed journey, I'm going to introduce to you the Spicy Gnome Hot Sauce, the perfect fusion of flavor and heat that will tantalize your taste buds. And that's not all, because the Spicy Gnome is a proud sponsor of a sizzling summer series of the Just Get Hired podcast. And if you're ready to hear the hottest takes on the hottest topics this summer, and I'm going to feature your favorite LinkedIn and business influencers from around the globe. Well, we're not here just to spice up your palate, but we're also here to spice up your career. So stay tuned in July for some exciting episodes and get ready to experience the bold flavors the Spicy Gnome has to offer. You can visit thespicygnome.com today to elevate your taste buds and take you to new heights. Well, I'm stepping up my game this summer, so I'm tossing out my normal cadence of every other week on an episode, and I'm going to pump out even more, so make sure you come on back, add Just Get Hired to your playlist. My name is Jessica Fiesta George, your host of the Just Get Hired podcast. What do y'all want to talk about next? I'll catch you on my next episode.